the lease without reading the fine print. It was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but I chalked it up to luck, or maybe desperation. My old place had been condemned, and I didn't have time to be picky. The landlord was strange. His fingers were ink-stained and yellow, like he'd been thumbing through ancient paper. He said little, except when he handed me the keys and muttered, "Quiet hours are between 3:11 and 3:33 a.m. Observe them." I laughed. He didn't. The building stood at the end of a dead-end street no GPS could find. The address didn't match up on Google Maps, and when I tried to look at it in Street View, the frame just blurred. Literally glitched. I should have run right then. Night 1. The Hollow Tap. My first night there was uneventful, at least until the exact moment the clock on my phone hit 3:11 a.m. That's when I heard it. Knock. Knock, knock. 3 quick taps from inside the wall behind my bed, hollow and perfectly spaced like someone using their knuckles on drywall. I sat up. Nothing in the apartment, nothing outside the window. I blamed old pipes, city rats, maybe my imagination, but I turned the volume up on my white noise machine just in case. At 3:33 a.m., the knocking stopped, not a second earlier, not a second later. Night 2. The pattern begins. The knocks came again and again the next night, always starting at 3:11 a.m., always stopping at 3:33. I even recorded it on my phone, but when I played it back in the morning, the audio was blank, just a soft buzzing hum that made my teeth hurt. I moved my bed away from the wall, slept on the couch. It didn't help. The knocking followed me. One night, I lay on the floor in the kitchen, desperate for silence, and it started again, on the fridge door this time, at exactly 3:11. Night 5. The symbol. When I woke up, I found a handprint on the inside of my bedroom mirror. 5 long fingers smudged against the glass, dripping with something dark and gray like ash. I hadn't touched the mirror. It was on the inside. Investigation. I started digging. The building didn't have a name, just Unit 7. The neighbors were quiet, but I noticed that they all avoided me. No small talk in the hallway, no eye contact in the mailroom. When I waved at the woman next door, she turned and walked back inside without a word. I left a note under her door. She slid it back without opening it. The paper now read, "If they knock, do not knock back." That's when I remembered something. My first night, half asleep, I had knocked back, as a joke. 311 everywhere. Things got worse. The number 311 was everywhere. My receipts, $3.11. My microwave, stuck at 311. My dreams, doorways with clocks above them, frozen at 311. I turned on my laptop one morning and every single file was named 311. I tried calling the landlord. Disconnected. I tried looking up the building online. Nothing. No records, not even a tax document. It was like the place didn't exist. Until I found one forum post buried on a conspiracy site from the early 2000s. One entry, "They come at 3:11, they knock, you answer, then you forget you ever lived anywhere else." Night 12. The other side of the wall. I stayed awake all night with a flashlight and a baseball bat. I watched the wall where the knocking came from. At 3:11 it started. Knock, 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 knock. This time the paint cracked. I swear to God I saw the wall breathe. The surface pulsed, pushing inward and then outward like something just behind the drywall was moving closer to the surface. Then, a whisper. "Let me in. We've knocked for you. Now you knock for us." I ran to the hallway, pounded on the neighbors' doors. No one answered. I left the building, walked 3 blocks away before I realized my phone, wallet, and keys were gone. They were back in the apartment. And so was I. I turned around and I was inside again. Front door locked. Clock on the stove, 3:12 a.m. Breathtaking. The ritual. I couldn't keep going like this. I dug deeper. The forum had instructions, a way to end it. Place 6 mirrors facing each other in a hexagon. Write "I remember" in charcoal on every wall. Should light a candle at 3:10 a.m. and wait. Whatever happens, do not knock back. I did it. I watched the shadows crawl up the walls. The mirrors twisted like water. My reflection stopped mimicking me. It looked at me. Then it knocked. Knock, knock, knock. I couldn't help it. I knocked back. The end. I don't remember my name anymore. I live in an apartment without doors. The hallway loops. The clocks all say 3:11. I see others here sometimes wandering, lost, holding candles, and muttering old names they used to know. Sometimes I knock for them, sometimes they knock for me. I've left this story for you in case you get the lease. If you hear them knock, don't answer. If you do, you'll never leave. You'll forget why you wanted to. You'll just stay. Like me. Forever between 3:11 and 3:33. Would you like 38? The man who painted with dust. I didn't think much of the man across the street when I first moved in. He was just there, always there, standing in the window of the crumbling house on the corner. 3rd floor. Left window. From my own place, I had a perfect view. His silhouette never changed. Sometimes I'd forget about him for days, then glance out during breakfast and there he was, not moving, just watching. He was a shadow made of stillness. But one day, he waved. That's when things began to change. It started with the dust. Gray, like ash but heavier. I found it on my kitchen floor one morning in a perfect circle. No draft, no air vents, just dust, and always in the same place. The next morning it was there again, slightly larger. It had texture now, almost like a brushstroke. I didn't connect it to the man in the window until I saw him again. This time he was holding something long and thin in his hand, not a cane, a brush. He was painting the air. The paintings begin. I came home from work and found a mural smeared across my living room wall, painted in dust, grayscale, swirls and shadow. At first, it looked like static, just visual noise. But when I stepped back, I saw me, sleeping. The image showed my bed perfectly rendered down to the creases in the sheets, and my body lying in it. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. No one had a key, but the painting was real and fresh, still flaking at the edges. I checked the locks. I barely slept. The next night, a new painting. This time it showed me awake, sitting on the couch, staring at something just out of frame. I hadn't done that yet. It was a painting of tomorrow. The silence room. I called the police. They didn't come. I tried the neighbor across the hall. Her door was covered in the same dust. She opened it halfway, eyes hollow. "You shouldn't have looked at him," she said, then shut it. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3:12 a.m., my entire apartment went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that presses on your chest. The sound of too much nothing. Then I heard the brushstrokes. Scrape, swipe, flick. On the walls, the ceiling, under the floor, I screamed. Nothing came out. I had to know who he was. I crossed the street just before dawn. The house looked abandoned, rotting wood, broken shingles, weeds as tall as my waist. But the front door opened before I knocked. Inside was dust, nothing but dust. It blanketed the floors in thick, undisturbed sheets. But as I walked, it began to swirl, as if some invisible painter were at work. The stairs groaned like dying breath. The 2nd floor held nothing. The 3rd floor was his studio. Dozens of portraits lined the walls, drawn in exquisite detail, but all in tones of ash and shadow. Each was of a different person sleeping. And then I saw the final one. It was me. Standing there, in the studio, looking at it. The paint was still moving. The painter speaks. A voice filled the room, not from a mouth, but from the dust itself. I only paint what chooses to be seen. I turned. He was there now, not behind glass, not across the street, just there, inches from me. He wore clothes stitched from soot. His eyes were gray holes, and when he moved, his form flickered like a smudged pencil drawing. You saw me. You see me still. And now I see you, as you will be. He raised the brush. I ran. Nowhere is safe. Back in my apartment, the walls began to rot. Not physically, but artistically, like they were turning into a sketch. Color drained from my furniture. My skin began to pale in the mirror. My reflection blinked out of sync with me. Everything I touched left a smear of gray. And now I see dust in everything. Behind every book, beneath every plate, curling around the edges of my thoughts. The final stroke? I write this in a room that no longer feels like mine. The circle on the floor has grown into a spiral, coiling inward to a single point beneath my feet. I hear him behind the drywall, breathing in strokes. When I sleep, he paints. When I dream, he finishes. And someday soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe yesterday, I'll wake up in one of his murals. Still, colorless, forgotten by everyone except the man who paints with dust. 39. I took a job cataloging items from an abandoned cold case facility. It started with a job listing that shouldn't have existed. I was between contracts, freelance archivist, background in museum work, and a tendency to chase strange gigs when money got tight. The post was buried in an old archivist job board, last updated in 2014. It simply read, "Urgent. Private contractor needed. High pay, must not ask questions, archival experience required, gloves provided." There was no email, just a number and a time to call. Midnight exactly. I laughed, thought it was some kind of prank, but I called anyway. The voice on the other end was flat, barely human. They said the job was simple: go to a decommissioned law enforcement storage facility deep in northern Maine and document everything left behind from old cold cases. The building had been forgotten, closed in the late 90s, but some legal snafu required the property to be cataloged and sealed. 3 weeks of work, paid in cash, $50,000. They would send a car. I said yes. The facility. The car picked me up just before dawn. No driver said a word. The trip took almost 12 hours, nothing but tree-choked backroads and old towns that hadn't had working stoplights in decades. Eventually, we stopped at what looked like a concrete warehouse sealed with rusted police barricades. Faded signage near the door read, "Property of State Evidence Division, access restricted." Inside was cold. Too cold. Like the kind of cold that's old, the kind that seeps into walls and won't leave. I was greeted by a man in a wrinkled government-issued suit. He never gave me his name, just a list. The job was clear. Do not open any sealed containers unless labeled Tier 1. Do not touch anything without gloves. Do not read any personal documents out loud. Do not remain on the property past midnight. They gave me an office in the back corner, windowless, one flickering desk lamp. The air smelled like damp paper and formaldehyde. I should have left that first night, but I stayed. The first file, day 1, box number 02113. Inside, a dusty tape recorder, a sealed plastic bag containing what looked like melted vinyl, and a manila envelope marked, I pressed play. The tape hissed, then whispered. A voice, female, distorted like it was underwater. "If you found this, don't turn around." I paused the tape. The air felt colder. I turned anyway. Nothing, but the light flickered once. Spaze twice, then stopped. I should have written it off. Stress, sleep deprivation, but something in that voice had weight, like it had traveled too far to get here. The mirror file, day 4, box number 00452, contained a cracked makeup mirror, fragments of broken glass in a Ziploc, and a series of photographs all taken in complete darkness. Every photo showed a figure reflected in the mirror that wasn't present in the room. Some figures were missing eyes. Some had none at all, but every one of them was staring through the mirror, mouth open in the same silent scream. I checked the manifest. The mirror had been found at a murder scene in 1986. The victim had covered every reflective surface in the apartment with black spray paint before dying of what the coroner called unexplainable neural liquefaction. That night, I caught my own reflection blinking out of sync. Tier 2, day 8. I was getting careless. I opened a Tier 2 by mistake. It wasn't locked, just heavily taped and labeled redacted. Inside, an audio reel, a black velvet bag, and a diary belonging to a young boy. I skimmed the entries, nothing strange at first. He talked about his parents, school, his fear of thunder. Then came the last entry. "The man in the attic says I have to let him out before my birthday or he'll climb through my dreams." The reel was marked, "Do not listen." But I played it anyway. The sound was breathing. Not normal breathing. It was rhythmic, deliberate, as if whatever was recorded knew I was listening. The breathing changed tempo when I spoke. I turned it off. But that night, I dreamed of wooden beams and someone crouching above them, scraping something into the floorboards. In the morning, I had splinters in my mouth. The noose box, day 11. Box number 00777. Just a single item. A noose, frayed, stained, wrapped tight in plastic. The box was cold to the touch. There was a note handwritten in red ink. "Do not untie. Do not breathe on the knot. Do not say its name." No name was included. I logged the item, placed the noose back in its container, and went to leave the room. But when I reached the door, it was gone. Not closed. Not locked. Gone. The walls had changed. My desk was missing. The shelves were upside down, nailed to the ceiling. I heard someone humming. Then, snap. The noose was hanging midair, as if held by an invisible hook. The room returned to normal by morning, but every photo I've taken since then shows a rope just over my shoulder. The exit condition, day 14. Final box. It wasn't labeled. It wasn't even on the manifest. Just a black case marked with 3 letters burned into the leather. C. Inside, a mirror, a key, and a sealed letter addressed to me. By name. I didn't tell anyone my real name. Not even the man who hired me. The letter read, "We see you. You've seen too much. The door will lock at midnight. If you do not leave before then, your presence will be archived. Your body will not." The mirror reflected not my office, but a room filled with hundreds of people, all sitting silently, eyes wide open, all wearing my face. I used the key. I ran. Now, it's been 6 weeks. The check cleared. I haven't heard from anyone since, but I find dust now. Gray dust under the doors. I hear breathing through the vents. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see items I never cataloged, things I never touched. And once in a while, when I pass a mirror, I see the reflection of that long, cold room filled with rows of archivists. And they are all waiting. Because I think the job never ended.